A shocking Hollywood tragedy. Late on Sunday, December 14th, 2025, first responders made a grim discovery at the Reiner's upscale Brentwood home. Around 3:30 p.m., the Los Angeles Fire Department was dispatched to the residence for a reported medical emergency. Upon arrival, firefighters found a 78-year-old man and a 68-year-old woman inside, both already deceased. Those individuals were soon confirmed to be Rob Reiner, the legendary actor-director, and his wife, Michelle Singer Reiner. The Los Angeles Police Department quickly launched a homicide investigation into the double death. In a press statement that evening, the Reiner family acknowledged the tragic passing of Rob and Michelle, expressing that they were heartbroken by this sudden loss and requesting privacy as they grapple with the shock. Investigators have revealed only limited details so far, but the nature of the crime left little doubt that foul play was involved. No signs of forced entry were found at the home, according to law enforcement sources, suggesting the victims likely knew their killer. Both Rob and Michelle had injuries consistent with being stabbed, one source told the Los Angeles Times. In fact, multiple outlets have reported that the couple suffered violent knife wounds in what appears to have been a brutal attack. This chilling detail has only amplified the horror of the crime. A beloved Hollywood power couple slain in their own home, apparently by someone wielding a knife. Almost immediately, attention turned to a member of the Reiner family who was present around the time of the killings. Police stressed that the investigation was in its early stages, but they confirmed they were interviewing a family member in connection with the double homicide. That family member, multiple sources would later tell news outlets, was the Reiner's middle child, Nick Reiner. According to People magazine's exclusive reporting, several insiders close to the family alleged that Nick, Rob and Michelle's 32-year-old son, was responsible for the deaths of his parents. This bombshell claim, emerging only hours after the bodies were found, cast an immediate shadow of suspicion on the Reiner's own son. It is important to note that, as of the latest updates, police have not publicly named Nick Reiner as a suspect or announced any arrests. Officially, he is a person of interest who was detained for questioning, not charged. At a late-night press conference, LAPD Deputy Chief Alan Hamilton pointedly stated that didn't come from LAPD when pressed about the report of Nick's involvement. Nonetheless, authorities did hint that they are not looking for any outsider at large. Hamilton reassured the public that we're not looking for anybody else in Brentwood in connection to the murders, a statement widely interpreted to mean the perpetrator was already accounted for. In other words, all signs suggest that investigators strongly believe the killer came from within the family and that Nick was present at the scene. In fact, witnesses at the location reported seeing Nick being taken away by police on Sunday, according to sources cited by People. Who were Rob and Michelle Reiner? Rob Reiner's name is synonymous with some of the most cherished films and television of the last half-century. Rising to fame as Michael "Meathead" Stivic on the iconic 1970s sitcom All in the Family, Rob transitioned in the 1980s into an acclaimed director of enduring Hollywood classics. His directorial resume reads like a greatest hits list. This is Spinal Tap, 1984. Stand By Me, 1986. The Princess Bride, 1987. When Harry Met Sally, 1989. Misery, 1990. A Few Good Men, 1992. All films that have left an indelible mark on popular culture. Rob's creative talents extended into producing and acting as well, and in later years he became an outspoken political activist on issues of social justice. At 78 years old, he remained a highly respected figure in the entertainment industry and beyond, frequently noted for his boundless empathy and the positive impact of his work. Michelle Singer Reiner, 68, was Rob's beloved wife of 36 years and a notable creative presence in her own right. A photographer and activist, Michelle first crossed paths with Rob on the set of When Harry Met Sally in 1988. She was working as a photographer on the film, and their chemistry was immediate. The two married in 1989 and built a happy family together, settling in Los Angeles and welcoming 3 children: Jake, born 1991, Nick, born 1993, and Romy, born 1997. Rob also has an older daughter, Tracy Reiner, from his previous marriage to actress-director Penny Marshall. Friends describe Rob and Michelle as devoted partners who complemented each other well. Rob with his big-hearted humor and passion for storytelling, and Michelle with her artistic eye, warmth, and commitment to charitable causes. The couple were often seen side by side at industry events, red carpets, and humanitarian galas, and they remained deeply involved in progressive activism and philanthropy over the decades. News of the Reiners' violent deaths sent shockwaves through Hollywood and beyond. Within hours, tributes and statements began pouring in. Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass called the loss devastating for our city and our country, praising Rob Reiner's contributions to film and his advocacy on behalf of social justice. California Governor Gavin Newsom likewise lauded Rob's remarkable filmography and extraordinary contribution to humanity, reflecting the broader sentiment that an entertainment icon and compassionate voice had been tragically silenced. Meanwhile, fellow entertainment legends and close friends of the couple descended on the Reiner home to pay their respects. Comedian Billy Crystal and actor-writer Larry David, both longtime friends, collaborators of Rob, were spotted arriving at the house on Sunday evening, looking distraught. According to a neighbor, Billy Crystal appeared like he was about to cry as he left the scene. The presence of such figures underscored how beloved Rob and Michelle were within their community. The Norman Lear family, Rob's all-in-the-family colleagues, also issued a sorrowful statement, with Lear's wife noting, "The world is unmistakably darker tonight in the wake of the Reiners' deaths." Against this backdrop of grief and shock, the central question loomed. What exactly happened inside the Reiner home, and why? Initial reports provided a basic timeline. The Reiners had been at home on Sunday afternoon when, at some point, a violent incident occurred resulting in their fatal stab injuries. There was no immediate indication of a break-in or robbery gone wrong. Nothing was stolen and, as mentioned, the home showed no forced entry. Sometime after 3 p.m., one of the Reiners' children discovered the horrifying scene. According to People, it was their 28-year-old daughter, Romy Reiner, who walked into the home and found her parents' lifeless bodies. It's hard to even imagine the nightmare that Romy, a young actress and writer, must have stepped into at that moment. She or someone at the residence immediately called 911 for medical help. That emergency call is what brought the LAFD paramedics to the address around 3:30 p.m., initially on a medical aid call-out. Once firefighters saw the situation was far beyond any life-saving measures, police officers were summoned. LAPD units arrived within minutes to what they termed an ambulance death investigation, meaning firefighters had reported a death on scene requiring police response. By Sunday evening, the quiet Brentwood block had transformed into an active crime scene, swarming with detectives from the elite robbery homicide division. The street was taped off, and investigators methodically began gathering evidence from inside the Reiner home. The sight of patrol cars and crime lab vans outside the residence of a Hollywood family so revered left neighbors and fans in disbelief. "No, damn it, too horrible," one family friend posted online upon hearing the news. The investigation points to the Reiner's son. As detectives worked through the night, a deeply unsettling picture began to emerge. Multiple outlets, citing sources close to the investigation, reported that the Reiner's own son, Nick Reiner, had become the central focus of the case. The idea was almost unthinkable. A son suspected in the violent deaths of his parents, yet authorities made no indication that anyone else was being sought. Nick was reportedly present at the home on the day of the killings and was quickly detained for questioning. Police have not disclosed what specifically led them to focus on him, nor whether physical evidence, witness statements, or something said at the scene prompted his detention. But the absence of a public manhunt spoke volumes. As one Reddit user put it bluntly, if they're saying this with certainty hours after it happened, they must have something significant. As of the latest updates, Nick has not been formally charged. Law enforcement has confirmed only that the individual being questioned was alive, in custody, and that no other suspects were under consideration. Investigators were reportedly in the process of securing search warrants and fully processing the home before making any official determinations. Still, the implications were immediate and staggering. The possibility of patricide, of a son allegedly killing both parents, sent shockwaves through the public. Online reactions ranged from disbelief to raw grief. How does someone kill both parents? One commenter asked, a question that continues to hang over the case as investigators work to determine not just what happened inside the Reiner home, but why. Inside the troubled world of Nick Reiner. In the few days since the murders, much has been revealed about Nick Reiner's history, a history fraught with personal demons that may now hold clues to this tragedy. Nick is the second of Rob and Michelle's 3 children, their middle son. Despite growing up in a household of privilege and love, Nick struggled profoundly throughout his youth and young adulthood. By his own open admission, he battled severe drug addiction from an early age. In a candid 2016 interview with People, Nick revealed that his descent into substance abuse began in his early teens and led him down a harrowing path. He entered rehab for the first time around age 15, but found himself relapsing repeatedly. By 2016, he estimated he had cycled through a dozen different rehab programs. As his addiction to drugs, reportedly heroin and other opioids, worsened, Nick became increasingly estranged from his family and conventional life. He often ran away or drifted after rehab stints, at times living homeless on the streets in states across the country, from Maine to New Jersey to Texas. I was homeless in Maine. I was homeless in New Jersey. I was homeless in Texas. Nick recalled of those dark years, calling the experience not fun. He spoke of spending nights and sometimes weeks sleeping outdoors during binges, utterly adrift. Eventually, Nick's family, Rob and Michelle, helped him back from the brink. Through persistence and support, they got him into recovery programs again, and Nick slowly fought his way to some stability. By 2016, at around 22 years old, Nick had reached a turning point. He had been sober and back home in Los Angeles for a sustained period and was trying to rebuild his life. In fact, he channeled his tumultuous experiences into a creative endeavor with his father. Nick co-wrote the screenplay for a semi-autobiographical film titled Being Charlie, directed by Rob Reiner and released in 2016. The film tells the story of a young man struggling to overcome drug addiction, art imitating life in the most personal way. At the time of the movie's release, Nick sounded hopeful and introspective about his journey. "When I was out there, I could have died. It's all luck," he said, reflecting on how fortunate he felt to have survived his addiction. He spoke gratefully of being acclimated back to being in LA and being around my family after so many dark years on the streets. For Rob and Michelle, seeing Nick healthy and home again was no doubt a relief and a joy. By all appearances, the Reiners fully embraced their son in his recovery, and Nick in turn seemed dedicated to staying on a better path. Over the next several years, Nick kept a relatively low public profile. Unlike his older brother Jake, a journalist, actor, and sister Romy, Nick did not often appear in the press or at high-profile events, aside from that brief moment promoting being Charlie. This makes it difficult to know what might have been going on in Nick's life in the lead-up to the current tragedy. Was he still sober and stable? Or had he suffered a relapse or mental health crisis, unbeknownst to most? In the absence of official answers, many who followed Nick's story have begun to speculate about what could have driven him to allegedly kill his parents. One obvious fear is that Nick's old demons may have resurfaced. Addiction, especially to hard drugs, can completely alter a person's behavior and psyche. On forums like Web Sleuths and Reddit, users familiar with addiction's toll theorized that Nick might have fallen back into substance abuse, triggering a dangerous downward spiral. "My stepson has addiction issues. It makes him violent and abusive," one commenter revealed, suggesting that drug dependency can fuel rage and irrational actions. Indeed, it's not uncommon for severe drug relapse to be accompanied by paranoia, aggression, or desperate behavior, especially if there were confrontations about getting help or conflicts over money to buy drugs. Some wonder if Rob and Michelle perhaps confronted Nick about suspected drug use or tried to enforce a boundary, an intervention that tragically escalated into violence. Others have speculated about mental illness, which often goes hand in hand with substance abuse. Mental illness and drug abuse happen in every family, regardless of social status, noted one observer, sadly underscoring that even a family as prominent as the Reiners was not immune to such struggles. Could Nick have been suffering from an undiagnosed or undisclosed psychiatric disorder that erupted that day? Schizoaffective disorders or severe bipolar episodes, for example, can sometimes trigger violent outbursts, particularly when mixed with drugs. Another angle of speculation involves family dynamics and personal stresses. At 32, Nick was still living at home, at least part-time, according to neighbors who knew the Reiners. Rob and Michelle actually owned 2 houses across the street from each other in Brentwood, one where the couple lived, and another where their adult daughter, likely Romy, lived with her kids. It's unclear whether Nick was residing with his parents or elsewhere, but he was clearly still closely connected to the family. Online discussions have raised questions. Was Nick working or financially dependent on his parents? Was he under pressure to live up to the Reiner family name? Rob Reiner was not only famous and successful, but also deeply involved in political causes. Nick, by contrast, had struggled to find his footing. Such disparity, while usually met with parental love and patience, can still breed feelings of inadequacy or resentment in a troubled son. We do not know if any specific argument or breaking point occurred on December 14th, but some have pointed out the eerie timing. Just a week before the holidays, when the family would normally be gathering to celebrate. The house was even decorated for the season, as one stunned neighbor noted from seeing festive lights still on the property. What should have been a joyful time turned into a scene of unimaginable sorrow. As of now, the motive for the killings remains officially unconfirmed. Investigators will be looking to Nick Reiner for answers, and if he indeed is the perpetrator, those answers may be hard to come by or comprehend. Was this a premeditated act or a sudden explosion of rage? Did Nick have an argument with his parents that spiraled out of control? Or could this have been a paranoid or delusional episode of some kind? Forensic evidence from the scene and any statements Nick makes will eventually shed light on the sequence of events. The Reiner family, meanwhile, must be reeling from a double blow, losing 2 beloved members in one night and facing the possibility that another member of the family caused it. Rob and Michelle's 2 other children, Jake and Romy, have not spoken publicly beyond the family's collective statement of grief. One can only imagine their turmoil, not only mourning their parents, but also grappling with fury or confusion toward their brother Nick, and perhaps worry for his well-being if he was in a state of crisis. A case that leaves Hollywood and the public reeling. As we await more information, we're left with a tragic story and many unanswered questions. Rob Reiner spent a lifetime telling uplifting stories and fighting for what he felt was right in the world. Michelle Reiner devoted herself to her family and creative passions, by all accounts making the world around her brighter. It is heartbreaking that the final chapter of their lives was not written by any of them, but allegedly by the troubled son they loved unconditionally. In the court of public opinion, there is already a mix of sadness and anger directed toward Nick. Nick, what a vile excuse for a human being. One person seethed online upon hearing the allegation. Others urge compassion until the facts are fully known, noting that Nick himself has been fighting lifelong battles. Addiction is awful. If it is true, it tracks, a commenter observed grimly, implying that Nick's history might sadly explain his capability for such violence. In the end, no explanation will ever fully make sense of a crime like this. The Reiner family has been destroyed from within, and Hollywood has lost not one, but two of its own. The coming weeks will likely bring clarity through an indictment and eventually a trial where we may learn exactly what led a son to do the unthinkable. Until then, all we can do is mourn the victims, support the surviving family through our condolences, and reflect on the fragile mix of love, pain, and sometimes tragedy that can define family relationships. As one user wrote in anguish, their bodies were discovered by their daughter. Every update about this tragedy makes the situation worse and sadder. That poor couple and their poor daughter. Indeed, there are truly no winners in this story. Only an unfathomable loss and questions that may haunt everyone involved for years to come. Do you want to bring bad things with you wherever you go? Our episodes are now available as a podcast. Look us up on your favorite podcast app and listen to the most truth-seeking true crime podcast out there.